Fork in the Loaf blog, and I today want to do a video on making ghee. I am at the point right now that I only have about that much left, and I use this all the time. I love this because it's got a higher smoke point. Like, I can cook things hotter in here than I can with just butter, which will brown, and this won't brown. It's more like the oil of the butter. And so I'm just going to show you how I make my ghee. I use a lot of Kerrygold butter, but like my raw local honey, I have a tendency to feel like if I cook my raw local butter, it is going to pasteurize it. It's going to remove a lot of those properties that make it grass-fed. It's going to alter the omega-3s into omega-6s. It's going to change a lot of the nutritional benefits if I cook it into ghee. So not only that, but Kerrygold to me is a little spendy. Like at Costco, I can get it for $12 for four of those gold pack cube thingies. And I, looking at a pint of ghee at Costco, I think Costco has actually a jar of ghee there right now, and it was like $12 just for the jar of ghee. And I can do 4 pounds of butter and make it into ghee for $12 or under $12 even. So I won't use the Kerrygold to make ghee because it's expensive, and why am I going to waste that kind of money and that kind of butter on cooking it for a long period of time? So I do use the normal butter, the regular sweet cream, I usually get Costco. I do a lot of bulk buying. And so I just want to show you how I do that. It is a very long process, but it's easy. So I'm going to tilt you down to my stove, and I'm going to show you how I do this. So in my pot, I have 4 pounds of butter. I like to do it in 4-pound increments. With 4 pounds, I will get about 3.5 pints of ghee. And I'm going to set this on a low heat, not quite low because I want it to cook a little bit, but I don't want it to burn. So it's going to be on a low heat, and I'm just going to let it, I will probably put it on medium for about 5 minutes until it starts to get hot and really starts to melt. And then I will drop it down to low, and I'm going to let it sit on low for an hour or two. You can do this in your crock pot. I've done it in there. I just do not like to clean it. I'd rather clean this than clean my crock pot with the stuff that happens on the bottom. This is also easier for me to lift to strain at the end, whereas the crock pot is really bulky and it doesn't seem to like to pour things out as well as my pot will. That's why I like to do it in the pot on the stove. So I'm going to go ahead and get this to where it's melted, and I'll be back to show you. Okay, so here I have melting down. It is starting to move a little, so at this point I'm going to turn it down. It's still not fully melted, but trust me, by the time this is done, it will be very well melted. So I am going to let this sit here probably for an hour or two, and I will be back. It's now 10 o'clock in the morning, so I will come back in another hour or two and we'll look and see how this is doing. Okay, so it is now 11, and you can see on the surface all that white stuff. It does make a little bit of a mess. You could use a bigger pot, which I do have a bigger pot. I just didn't put it in at this time. I'll have to do just a little bit of cleanup, but that's okay. Some people will go through and clear off that foam. I just wait a little bit longer. It doesn't really, I think it will strain out when I strain it through the cloth. So I'm going to give it just a little bit longer. See how it's still a little cloudy in the yellow stuff? I don't want it to be cloudy at all. It's going to be clear when it's time to pull. Okay, so we are exactly where I want to be. It's about 10 minutes to noon. See how clear that is? How you can see all the way down through to the bottom, and there's some browning going on the bottom. That's where I want it. It's got that beautiful golden color. That's ghee. All of this liquidy stuff is ghee. These, I believe, are kind of like salty solids. And these salty solids will come out in the straining. All right, so I've got 4 jars here. I know that this is going to be about 3.5 pints. So I've got 4 jars here. I'm going to use a stainless steel. I'm going to use a stainless steel strainer because I know this won't melt. My plastic will be okay. I do have an aluminum one. I'd love to get a stainless steel one. I'm not there yet. But I'm going to take that, and then I have these cloths that I use for my bread and stuff that are just like flour set cloth. You can use cheesecloth, but I currently don't have any. All right, I'm going to pull some out, and I'm going to put it through this cloth and through the sieve. Okay, there's one. While it is still hot, I'm going to take vinegar. You don't want it dripping with vinegar, but it's wet with vinegar. And I'm going to get the grease off of the edges. I'm going to put a clean cap on it right away. It's not a brand new cap, but it is a clean one. And I'm going to cap it on tightly. And I'm going to set it aside on a towel or another pot holder. And you want to be careful because this is hot. So because the butter is cleared, it's going to last a long time. You do run the risk of it going rancid, but we use it so fast. I use it a lot. I use it for most of my cooking. Okay, so this is the very last jar. And I have that bit of residue. I've kind of emptied it. Let's see, can you see this? This is the last of the residue that came out of the bowl or out of the pot. And at this point, I can really kind of try to squeeze it out. It's warm. It's pretty hot. I'm going to try taking a couple spoons and squeezing out some of the, whoa, maybe not. Squeezing out some of that oil. And I'm just going to toss this. Some people like to keep it. I'm sure you could eat it if you want to. I just find it salty, not necessary. Once I toss all the solids out of it, I'll use the same cloth to clean out the pot, which will help get some of the grease out of the rag. I'm going to vinegar my edge, put a cap on. And I got a little bit more than a half. So let's see if I can put you back down where you can see. All right, so I got a little bit more than a half this time. So I got almost 4 pints out of 4 pounds. You can almost figure almost a pound per pint. Maybe just a hair more than yeah. And now I don't put these away in the refrigerator. You can store these in the refrigerator. You could store them in your freezer. I actually just store them in my cupboard. They will last me close to, I want to say 3 to 6 months, depending. I use this all the time to cook. See, it kind of is almost always on my shelf because I use it so much. And yeah, I've got a big mess. But I'm going to clean this up. And when these cool, I'm just going to put them up in my shelf, up in my cupboard with the rest of my oils and the rest of my fats. And they will just sit there as I use them, I will just pull them out. That is how I do my ghee. This is what it looks like cooled. And it smells, actually I can't really smell very well. We just got done with dealing with some COVID symptoms, but this is my ghee. Okay, so that's how I do my ghee. Super simple. It just takes time. If you have the time to, like on a Saturday morning when you're not at work and all that kind of stuff, it's really planned for it. I mean, it's not something I want to leave to go grocery shopping. I don't want to be, in the middle of taking care of my garden when I've got this in here on the stove. it is a grease and a fat. And on my, if you've got open flame, you might have to be a little bit more careful. I have a flat burner, and so leaving it on here, it can still cause a fire if you're not careful, if you're not paying attention. Use a large pot. My pot that I used was actually a little too small. I usually like to use my bigger one. And so if you're liking my videos, click the subscribe button down below. Hit the little bell and you'll get notifications. And I will see you next time on A Fork in the Loaf.